Well, let's see what little treasures we find here. Now that the mattress is out, oh look, a little leftover guilty pleasure from the trip. That's my fault. Oh, there's the head of the rudder stock. Well, that doesn't look good. Fairly certain that's supposed to be centered. Super. Okay. And let's see. Oh, good. Looks like some good leakage there. A hell of a steel truss up here is the top support. HVAC system. This is the end of the autopilot. That is the location sensor for the autopilot. Oh good, that's rotted too. Sweet. There's the autopilot. So let's see here. A couple of bronze gears for the steering system. There's the HVAC system over there. So, oh boy. Side filter's pretty nasty. Cool. Nice hodgepodge of different plumbing lines cobbled together. That's always the approved use of packs into rubber tubing. Super. Let's see here. Electrical. Back of the drawers look pretty good. Looks like it might have been shortened up. I guess we'll be taking the top of this bunk apart too, replacing that plywood. Oh yeah, crunchy, crunchy, delaminated. Yep, tabbings broke away. All that plywood is rotted out. Back of these doors are delaminating. I guess we'll be replacing those. So this is what happens when you put cleats up that have been epoxied. So that was a good thing that they're sealed, but if you don't get the amine blush off of them, things don't stick to them real well. Like this, construction adhesive. It's polyurethane glue. Normally it would stick to water because it's, anybody's ever used this stuff knows as soon as you open the cap, you will find polyurethane glue on your person in places you would never expect, like the tops of your feet, the back of your head, and all that. But if you look on this polyurethane, if you were able to look on it up close, you might be able to zoom in on it, but you can see it's glossy. So they actually applied construction adhesive to these wood battens, and it's shiny. It's covered in amine blush. So this is why surface prep is kind of important. Thankfully the boat is built like a tank, so you can actually pry against the hull without flexing it. It's kind of nice. I think above the water line, I want to say that it's probably a good 2 inches thick. Below the water line, it's supposed to be about 3. But heavy chop strand, or heavy woven mat, and there is core in here. I think it's a plywood core, but it's heavily sealed on the edges, so we haven't found any areas, knock on wood, that are questionable. thankfully. So a lot said in boat interiors about you have to use marine grade plywood and you have to use teak. This is pine. You can absolutely use this, but one thing I would tell you is if you're planning on using pine inside of your boat, you're planning on using anything inside of your boat, save for maybe teak. It's in your best interest to seal the back of it before you put it on, and then seal the front and the ends and the edges and all that, because wood is like a giant sponge and it will draw moisture out of the air, especially if it's been kiln dried, it's extra dry. It'll draw ambient moisture, humidity out of the air, and will swell and bow and buckle and discolor and all kinds of fun stuff. So if you're going to use something other than something that's supremely rot resistant like a teak, which teak will rot just like anything else if you give it the opportunity, it just takes quite a long time to do it. It's really in your best interest to take the time and seal the wood all the way around. Well, I would have liked to have tried to save these cleats so that I'm not having to drill more stuff into the glass, but honestly it just wasn't put on very well. So there's broken sections and bad angles, so I'll end up pulling it all down. If you're the person to put this on and you're out there watching this, don't come at me. It's a waste of your time, because it is what it is. It's, you know, shame but true. I'll kind of show you what we're looking at here. So yeah, you can see just kind of haphazardly put on here at whatever interval seemed convenient. You see that one down there has no adhesive on it, no adhesive, no adhesive, but it's all over the back of those boards. So it wasn't like they didn't put the adhesive on there, it's just that they didn't take the amine blush off of the fiberglass wood, so polyurethane didn't stick to it. Apparently they got it off of this one, but and you can see down here where that piece is broken. This one is bent at a weird angle. And you can see how thick that is. Again, for scale, that's my hand. That's how thick that opening, hull opening is. It's got to be a good 2 inches. So we'll go ahead and pull these cleats off of here and then clean this area up a little bit. Probably pull, hate to have to drill out these plugs, but probably pull that piece of trim off right there, and most likely pull that piece off and these pieces off, and that way our new coverings, because again we're going to do liners as well, that way our new coverings will actually go behind the trim like they're supposed to, and not up against the edge of it where it has to be covered up with rope rope trim, which is what was on here before, which is just kitschy and cute, but not really the level of carpentry we're going for here. So they did use 1932 plywood, pine plywood, which is what I'll put back in here, but I am going to take this off because again it's just a bit haphazard, and like over there it's up against the trim, and we'll make adjustments to that trim piece so that it fits back in nice and neat over top of the wall covering, whatever that ends up being. So we'll trim that back to make that nice and neat. I need to take it off anyway, because if you look over in that corner you can see there's some obvious wood rot, and I need to make sure that that's not going to be an issue. So, oh boy, You know, in carpentry we call these threading the sweater jobs. You know, like the old-timey knitted sweaters, you'd pull on a thread and it may just pull right out, and you know, you go on with your day, or you may pull on that thread and unravel the entire sweater. Well, that's sort of what these jobs are like, is that you just keep taking things off that are bad in hopes that you don't end up taking everything off. But it certainly can go that way. So hope and pray for us that it doesn't. But based on the distribution of wood rot I've seen in this boat, I have a fair sense that we're going to be doing a lot more woodwork than we thought. But thankfully it's kind of up my alley, so I'm not too worried about it. But it is not what I'd hoped to be doing. I'd hoped to be doing some mechanical work and some upgrades and updates, and then sealing up the deck from water intrusion and then splitting. But we're going to try to shove this all into less than a year so we can get out of here, but we'll see what happens. And do us all a favor, if you're putting up trim in a boat, use screws. Don't use these little pin nails. They barely hold up in the non-marine world to hold trim in place. If there's even the slightest bit of moisture in the area, they immediately rust and break off. So once again, glad I'm not having to fight this stuff, but still kind of sucks. And thank you once again to Ted Irwin for building this boat like a tank. My job a hell of a lot easier. I don't have to be delicate about prying against that fiberglass, because again, it's substantial. Even over here where it's not cored, you can see it rolls down. There's no core material there. It's still, based on what I'm seeing, it's still over an inch thick, solid glass. So appreciate that. I'm sure you guys are enjoying seeing the excess weight on me and the pained way in which I move, and that's because a lifetime of bad decision making and choices has led to a general disintegration of both my lower back and my neck. So I have many vertebrae and discs that are all doing different things that they shouldn't be doing. Oh, well, that's not a good sign. Generally speaking, a bad situation when you take a screw out and water starts to come out. Let's get this piece off. Before anybody freaks out, we're well above the water line, but I suspect that this is where one of the chain plates comes down. I don't know what's up above here. It's only coming out right there. Huh. Interesting. Well, I guess we'll just let gravity do its part there and try to figure out where the hell that water is coming from. Oh, it's so black and nasty. I don't know what the hell's behind here, so probably have to take a saw to it at some point and cut that back a little bit and figure out what the hell's going on. This is ground cable, ground line for the chain plate. Looks like it could probably stand it. Got a little bit of corrosion control done to it. Yeah, that's never a good sign. Oh boy. Okay. Glad I got that on tape. Or on video. Because I'm dating myself. It's not tape anymore, is it? Well, again, at least it's not at the bottom of the chain plate. Irwin. I don't hear any hollow. So that's good. Something up there is letting some water in. But it ain't doing much damage from the sound of it. That was pretty solid. Unbelievable. Guess that would explain some of the water damage I'm seeing down here. Buy a boat, they said. Fix it up, sail the world, they said. They were kind enough to use stainless steel Torx screws, so I'll be happy to reuse those. Save me God knows how much money. Yep. Still a damn funny thing. Pull a screw out of the wall above the water line, have water pour out. Like I said, I guess we'll figure it out eventually. So, as I was saying earlier, threading a sweater. Every time you pull something, you find something else. So, as I've been diligently yanking wood, forgive the camera angles, but so this is the top of the bed here. It's rotted out in this corner and the tabbing's broken loose. The old top of the little sliding cabinet here, the top was rotted on the edge and the tabbing's all let go. The idiots that put the air conditioner in just chopped a hole in there, left it wide open, didn't bother to box it out or anything. This thing's, the whole thing is just coming apart. This shelf back here is rotted out, obviously. So the whole friggin' cabinet's got to come apart. I'm going to end up stripping most of the stateroom out from the looks of it. To pull the headliner down and yeah, go from there. I'm going to end up, like I said, taking most of that head apart too, just as a matter of course, because I've got wood rot all in the back of it. It's just a mess. You got a huge air conditioner unit down here that I think I've got room to move back over into this area. The steering gear's all up here, so shouldn't interfere with any of that. I'll just put a platform in and move it over here. And then I can utilize that space where the return air is. So, I don't know. It's just been quite a mess. You guys remember, I pulled the screw out of the wall and got a water fountain there, 3 feet above the water line, so that's been fun. There's a chain plate embedded in the glass up there, but I'm getting no water out of there and no water from the hole above or below it. So it's just a little pocket, so I'll end up cutting away the fiberglass skin right there and looking inside and seeing what's going on. But this is the settee on my side of the bed, and you can see it's all soaking wet down there right on the tabbing. So I'm going to pull this melamine out off of it and then inspect the plywood. But you know, just like I was just telling Gina, if the edge of the plywood where the tabbing is, if it's wet and rotted, then it doesn't matter if the rest of the piece of wood's good. It's shot. There's nothing you can do with that. So she's here now, just got off of work, so she's being a good helper and taking out all this waste and rolling it to the dumpster. But this right here, this whole back wall, is the bulkhead that abuts the lazarette. But there's rot on the skin all the way around the edge by where that and really that may actually be a wood bulkhead, because there's tabbing on that, and there would not be tabbing just for a skin. So I don't know, I'm going to have to investigate that a little bit more and find out, because that's a main structural bulkhead. So I may end up just skinning that, dig out that rotted stuff, stabilize it, and skin it. But who knows? Just like everybody else, I'm just sort of making this up as I go along. So we just keep pulling the thread until we run out, and then we'll start putting everything back together. But liner's got to come down. We've got tons of water leaks from the deck hardware up above. So Gina was just asking me where do I suppose all the water's coming from, and I know where it's coming from. It's coming from the deck hardware, and it's running across this vinyl liner down to the edges, and then running down all the cracks and crevices. So, all right, well, we'll get back with you later. Well, good morning. Okay, so back on the boat, and thanks to an all-night steady rain. I'm getting some help this morning in figuring out where the hell all this water's coming from. As you can see, I have a nice puddle along here, and I've got water tracks coming up to this little hole that we found yesterday that sprung the geyser, so there's water actively running through there. There's water running down from there, water running down from there. Probably some on the other side as well. I haven't looked over there yet, but the top of the bed, as you can see, right there is water. So that's run down the walls. Oh, I can see dripping right around that port light from the overhead. So today I'm going to be taking this headliner down because it seems to be hiding where exactly all this water is coming from. So we know that the hatches need work. You can see right up there in that corner there's a drip. You might be able to see it. So we know that they're leaking, and we can see that as evidenced by water all over the top of the bed. So that's cool. This does sort of help me, actually. Most people would be ripping their hair out right now probably, but for me it makes my life a lot easier because today's plan was to take down the headliner anyway and see if I could follow the old dirt tracks and water stains and that sort of thing to figure out where the hell all this water's coming from, because there's not a hell of a lot of deck fittings up top, but the fact that it's running down the walls like this either means it's running across the headliner and dripping down, or it's coming out of the deck hull joint, which is where the cap rail and hardware and stanchions and all that shit are bolted down. So probably coming from there. But anyway, I'm gonna get into this and figure out what the hell's going on. Well, this just keeps getting better by the minute. Look at this. There's a headliner. This is right up by our door. Pretty sure that's rotted out. Oh, look at that. That used to be plywood. 3/4 of an inch. Years and years and years of water leaking. Oh yeah, I'm up here poking around. You guys can't even see. Look at this. That's 3/4 inch plywood, boys and girls. Used to be. Well, you know, some mysteries are easier to solve than others. This, of course, is that big header piece that's over top of my closet and the door coming into the cabin. And I'm like, gee, I wonder where all the water's coming from. Well, let's guess. The giant sunlight beams coming into the overhead might have something to do with it. Shocking. Holy shit. Did a lot more tear out yesterday, headliner, stuff like that. Really just tracking out leaks. We've got this little block up here and here on the deck. Big deck blocks, horizontally mounted. Both of those are mounted in solid glass, but they're obviously water tracking back to this core line, which is right behind it, because I've got water leaking out of both ends of that. So I've over drilled that with a 1/2 inch bit, and I'm just letting it drip, and you might still be able to see just a little bit of water dripping out of there still, and it's coming out of both ends. So I'll stick a shop vac on it at some point and try to draw some water out of it. We'll just leave it open and let it drain. I've checked the deck again. It's not soft anywhere around that. Jumped on it pretty good yesterday, and again, I'm a pretty good sized guy, so if it hadn't given it, I would have noticed it. But so that's pretty much what's going on with that. I did take the mirror down yesterday, as you can see right there, and there was a little discolored spot in the middle of it, and had little voids in the original teak veneer. So of course I hit it with the chisel yesterday, just gave it a push, and found out the core of that, the center of that, is rotted out, and that is actually a structural bulkhead that separates this cabin from the lazarette, which is, you know, itself quite considerable. But there's a lot of rot around the perimeter, and you know, standard wisdom would be to 86 this bulkhead and, you know, get rid of it and replace it. But honestly, that is probably a little more than we can do sitting at dock. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to harvest out or excavate all of this rot that's on the perimeter of it under the tabbing, cut the tab on this side, leave the tab on the back side, and I'm going to backfill that with thickened epoxy with microfibers in it, and we're going to bolster that so we can get rid of all the rot, wet that edge, and then backfill it with that, pack it in there real good and kind of ferret out flat. And once that's done, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sister a second bulkhead on the front of this one, marry those together probably with thickened epoxy. I don't have to grind this down, and marry that together, and then get that new piece tabbed in. And then later when I'm back, that lazarette's got wooden shelving in it and that sort of thing that's all rotted out or in bad shape. So I'm going to get in there and clear all that crap out and replace the shelving or reorganize it so that we can actually utilize that space better, because it's enormous. I mean, you could practically have family dinner inside of that thing. When I'm back in there, I'm probably going to put a couple of layers of biaxial on the back of this existing bulkhead, just to solidify that a little bit, and then retab that side as well and paint that lazarette out. But yeah, so today the plan is to get into the head and start tearing that out, because as you can see back over here, all that's rotted out. All of this you can see right behind the toilet right there, that's busted in. That whole thing is rotted. It's just rotted out. So I'm going to hopefully finish the tear out today, identify all the sources of water, like that one, the little geyser screw you can see over here. I drilled that out yesterday to let that drain out, and notice that there's a tie bar that's in there, a smaller one than the big one that's up here, but there's a tie bar in there that's tracked, so I know it's tracking directly out of the chain plate. And that chain plate is that, you know, pre-blend stainless steel, so I'm not worried about the integrity of the steel. Just am not interested in having pockets of water in the boat if I can help it. So we'll get that sucked out and dried out, and I'll backfill that with thickened epoxy. And then of course up top, I've got to dig out all those chain plates and pack butyl back down in there. But yeah, so once I get the rest of the tear out done, then I'm going to move up onto the deck, and I'm going to start rebedding everything from the transom to the cockpit. Now that I've kind of identified where things are coming from, I was cautious, because I wanted to make sure that if there was something that was a predominant leak, that I took care of it. For the most part, it looks like the deck hull joint's in good shape, but there are a million penetrations in it, because of course there's a wooden cap rail, so there's a screw every 6 inches, it seems like, for one thing or another. The stanchions come down into pockets. You can see one right there. There's a block with woven over it, and that is creating a pocket for the stanchion bases, which is, you know, it's got another 3 or 4 inches of metal on it below the mounting plate, which is great, except it's going into plywood, and clearly that's not held up so well. So I noticed some leaking around that as well. But I'm going to have to pull all the stanchions off, pull all the hardware off the cap rail, and when I do that, the cap rail is in pretty bad shape. It's been grafted several times. It has some damage left over from Hurricane Ian, a couple significant chunks missing out of it, and there's one spot right over here behind or beside the stateroom where there's some fiberglass damage, where it got through the wood and into the fiberglass at the deck hull joint. So I need to pull that apart and give it a look and see what's going on with that, and make sure that doesn't need to be repaired. But anyway, we're looking to lighten up things in here, so we're probably going to paint walls and replace trim, but we're going to replace it with the white oak. White oak has a substantial history in boats. It's very stable dimensionally. It's very hard. It's very rot resistant, bug resistant. As long as it's finished properly and handled correctly, then it should last as long as the boat lasts. So, I mean, we have, what is it, the USS Constitution that's made out of white oak, and it's still getting along. But anyway, so that's kind of the scoop. That's where we're at today. But I'm going to start doing this tear out in the head, and that's going to be a nasty mess. Nobody wants to watch all that crap. So
working on Olivia, and we had quite the mess. Went to go take just one wall to fix the wall in the master cabin. We knew there was some water damage, and that led to us, well, Sean actually, snooping around and pushing and realizing the wood was soft in a lot of areas. And so here, let me turn around, I'll show you. But anyway, the wood was soft. This is a mess. But did have this whole piled up, but I managed to get that clean. But anyway, he started pushing around on the wood and found that we had extensive wood rot damage. So now our bathroom, the head, is now gutted because here's, I mean, you can see this is the shower and all this wood rot. Pretty extensive damage. That's pretty disheartening, but as he reminds me, it's just wood and labor. So far, even the floor is rotted, so we'll have to replace every bit of this. This was the master cabin that looked pretty, but on the inside was mostly gone. Well, we come back to Olivia this morning because well, it's a very rainy day here, and so we have we have water all over the floor, and we have a definite leak up there. So we're trying to figure out where the main leak is coming in on this section of the. This is the little dinette. You can see there's standing water on here too, which is a perfect day for us to figure out where it's coming from.
I'm fairly certain that's coming from the back of that cubby.
Yeah.
And it's just running down this. You see there's wood right here?
Yeah, the one.
So it's running back and hitting this and then dripping off.
Okay.
Because I'm not seeing any tracking down the wall. Looks like it's just dripping down and hitting down here. And I'm looking at the deck hull joint, and I'm not seeing any water there. Right above us is the jib sheet track.
Yeah.
This is the backer for it, and I'm not seeing, well, I am seeing water, but it's dripping off the bolt. Not like it's coming through the deck hull, but it's like it's running through the bolt. So that pretty much tracks with what I expected. Yeah, see, it's dripping right there.
Oh, yeah.
Right here. But it's dry here, so I think it's coming through those bolt holes. Which makes sense because when you look at those things, half of those bolts are loose.
Yeah.
They're actually raised up from the surface. See, it's wet right there too. But that's one holy hell of a lot of water out here.
Sure is, and look at it piling underneath here. I push on it and it's running out underneath of this washing machine and dryer combo.
Well, looks like there's leakage. Oh, look, this drain line is cracked.
Oh.
See the water coming out of the drain line?
Yep.
The little micro cracks.
Yep.
So that's some of
that.
But that's not why this is wet. Oh, right here.
Oh, I see it.
Now that could be from this. Of course, that's not wet. But you know that freaking cubby's right above here too, so definitely running down from there.
Anyway, stay tuned.
So we're gonna have to pull all this off.
Oh, look at the water in here.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm not even prepared to look at that yet.
Oh, it's all in your tools too.
I'm sure.
Yeah, dripping down the
First thing I
walls.
did wet.
I don't know if that helps. You can actually see better when it's off. You can see it running down the walls, which we need that. We haven't rebed the hardware yet. We've only been doing the stripping, trying to figure the chase the water. But this hatch up here is definitely leaking, which is we're going to be removing the hatches.